Hello, everybody. Miles Kessler here, and welcome to another one of our meditation coaching demonstrations. And today I'm with Celynn Morin. She's in London, England. And Celynn, I'm just going to read your brief meditation experience, and if you can elaborate, that'd be
Great.
okay. So Celynn she has a formal meditation practice. She has studied with teachers. She's currently doing Dr. Joe Dispenza's based meditations and she's been doing so since July. And it's about 30 minutes to 1 hour daily, and she practices most days of the week. Can you tell me a little bit more about your practice?
Sure.
Like the history and experience?
Yeah. I probably started formally about just over 5 years ago. And then in the last 2 to 3 years, I've deepened the practice to be 5 or 6 days of the week, ideally most days, every day. And I started off with 10 minutes, I guess, as most people do. And then now, I mean, anything less than half an hour doesn't feel like a real sit.
Yeah,
And
right.
for the first time yesterday, I sat for 90 minutes,
Oh,
which was
fantastic.
actually much easier than I anticipated.
That's
So
great.
yeah, I'm definitely managing to still my body much better than I used to.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Maybe you could tell me a little bit of the methodologies, the experience you have, like what methods and what type of meditation you've done in the past.
Sure. In the beginning, for the first 2 or 3 years, I did a lot of guided visualization. So all a range of things from body scanning to Vipassana style, just being aware of your nostrils and your breath. And as of the past year and a half, I haven't used guided voices and just use my own experience. In fact, one of the changing points was a webinar that you presented on the embodiment facilitation coaching course with Mark Welsh.
Right, yeah.
Around the true self and the authentic self. And I found that incredibly moving. And I was like, actually, I have all the skills I need right here. I just need to sit and trust and still the mind. So I did that for about a year and a half. And then in July, I joined a group and I've been doing Joe Dispenza, which once again is guided. Yeah, so I did that. And then I also did a bit of Vedic. So I got a mantra, but I didn't
Okay.
find that settle with me, which was interesting. So I tried that for about 6 or 7 months. And then that's when I came across Joe Dispenza.
Okay. Are you aware of there's kind of all the meditations in the world, they kind of fall into two categories, very general categories. One is more of what's called in Buddhism, it's called concentration-based meditation, but it uses conceptual objects to go deep into the practice. So that could be like, for example, a mantra or visualization. Body scan is actually sense-based, so it's in the moment. But if you visualize your body as a certain light or something like that, then you'll be using more, excuse me, of a concept-based meditation, loving kindness, and these types of things are concept. And these types of meditation are called samatha in Buddhism. They actually develop quite intense concentration that you absorb into the state, but the benefits of those meditations are tranquility and calm, because it's tranquil and calm because you go deeper than the sense doors. So in one sense, you could say the sense doors kind of close, or your meditation absorbs so deep that you're not, I mean, you might hear a sound from the outside, but they're not really that present. Yeah. Whereas more of a mindfulness, that's one kind of category. Excuse me. And more of a mindfulness-based meditation is meditating on what's arising in the current moment in the sense doors, the 5 sense doors, and the mind. Yeah. So that's the totality of everything, but it's a currently arising phenomena. So those two traditions, some schools are just that, other schools are just that. Traditionally in Buddhism, there was always a coupling that you would do both. So what I heard actually now is that you have experience with both, and that you've shifted more into more of a mindfulness-based practice, which ultimately that's kind of where we want to go. But anytime you feel like it's maybe you're a bit frazzled or there's a tension or stress from the day, it can be very helpful to do either a guided meditation or a mantra practice, for example, to deepen, and then shift over or open up to more Vipassana or more of a mindfulness-based practice where you're just saying with the sense doors. Now, both of those are very good, but they develop very different things. Okay. So ultimately, it's the mindfulness-based practice that develop wisdom.
Yeah, I sense that.
Yeah, and the wisdom in it from a Buddhist perspective, not to be only Buddhist on this session, but from a Buddhist perspective, it refers to our ability to see into emptiness, to disidentify. That's what wisdom kind of means, but it could actually be any type of insight that comes up in you through just being present. And that's the power of mindfulness. That's the power that mindfulness has. It unfolds our process, our own personal process, whether it's in the body, mind, heart, or spirit, only unfolds when we are in the present, when we're present in the present moment and mindful of what's arising.
Yeah.
Right. And if I understand correctly, this is more what you're doing with the Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
Practice.
Yes, the Joe Dispenza is about coming right into what he calls the generous present moment and becoming completely unattached. So no one, nowhere, nothing, no place, almost going just into the quantum void of nothingness.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you describe? So can you describe? If you want to talk about that, that's fine. But basically, what you do when you sit down to meditate, can you describe to me how you start and how it unfolds for you?
Sure. Generally, I would focus on the heart area, so concentrating inside my body, around my heart, and then feel my body in the space immediately around me, and then within greater space, which is unfathomable and just goes on. And then I do that for my throat, the back of my head, and then the front of my head, so the upper energy centers. And then I almost imagine myself collapsing or just evaporating from myself. So just not being this causal, actual gross body and tapping into the greater space.
Okay,
with
great. So,
an elevated sense of awe, gratitude, love, joy, some kind of high emotion.
okay, so that I want to get to that point because that sounds really interesting. But tell me a little bit more about so this is a systematic thing that you do. You start with the heart.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and what exactly are you doing when you start with the heart? How are you placing your attention?
Well, if I'm understanding the question, I'm bringing my awareness to my heart area, and
So
then
the center here, the center in the body.
Inside the body. So I'm finding my space in my body, and then I'm finding that my body I've got an immediate space around me, and then a greater space that would extend beyond the room that I'm in, beyond the city, beyond the planet. So it gives me a sense of I am here and I'm grounded, but I'm part of something that's much bigger than me at the same time.
Okay, so help me understand a little bit. So the heart, we have the physical organ of the heart, right? And it's a physical beating thing that's inside of the chest center. But we also have this idea of the heart, which includes love and compassion and expansiveness and openness and all of this stuff. So when you say the heart, excuse me, what are you referring to in terms of what I just said?
Good. Perhaps the initial concentration is the actual heart, because I think of the actual area in my chest and I feel my heart. Okay. But then the moment I move, yes, what I feel.
Yeah. When you say I feel my heart, what do you feel?
Feel my heart rate.
You mean the beat?
Warmth. I feel the beat.
What's the beat like?
Depends if I've had coffee or not.
Well, let me put it this way: like the cha cha cha. It's cha cha cha. It's not a mambo. It's a cha cha cha. So what's the rhythm or the Okay, it can be fast with coffee or slower if you're calm. But what do you feel, like a boom boom boom, or do you feel the actual beating?
Yeah, I do.
And how long does that take to feel that? Is it immediate or take seconds?
Seconds. Yeah.
And what is the rhythm of the beat?
Gadoof, 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 like a heartbeat.
Okay, great. Okay.
Two-step, yeah.
Okay, so you anchor your attention there. Within a few seconds, you get into you start to experience the gadoof, gadoof, gadoof. And how long do you stay with that before you start to expand out?
A minute to 2 minutes, perhaps.
Okay, so you really anchor yourself there and purposefully not expanding, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this is a systematic thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
So you stay with this part, and then you open up to the area. Did you say the area in the body around the heart?
Yeah, I would say it's my immediate space, so perhaps an arm's length away. I imagine as far as I can reach.
And how do you determine when to make that shift?
When my mind feels still.
Okay, good. So you stay there, and it takes some time. You said a few minutes to settle in.
Yeah.
And then when you feel like you're still, then you open up a bit more.
Yeah. And it's not that my thoughts stop. It's that the gaps between what I should be doing, so past and future and not in the moment, the bigger that gap becomes. It's like the wave slows down, and then I allow myself to go outer further.
Great. So you feel a state shift that's a little bit less mental, a little bit less busy, even though there's activity, which, by the way, in mindfulness practice, there's always thoughts. By the way, Celynn, I'm going to say a lot of things that's really more for the recording than it is for you, because I think you understand them, but I just need
Great.
to elaborate. Yeah. So even with mindfulness, with what I was saying before about concentration practice, the mind can actually be silent for a long period of time. But with mindfulness-based practice, which is what you're talking about, thoughts will come and go, but they will come and go in a more kind of refined way. So you stay there for a few minutes until you feel like it's settled down. And I think you said there's more gaps between the thoughts.
Yeah.
And then when you feel like at a certain point you feel satisfied with that, you open up to another.
Yes. Then I generally move up to my throat, and then the back of my head, and then the top of my head.
Okay, I missed something. Do you go from the heart to there, or do you go to the immediate body around the heart?
I go from the heart to the immediate body around the heart to the greater space around the heart.
So I'm going to do this step by step. Okay, so the immediate body around the heart, what do you experience in that?
That's, I guess, a warmth of where my body ends and the space around my body, the air around my skin or my clothes starts. So it gives me a sense of, I guess it helps me again to feel grounded and in my body.
No, that's what I understand. But so when I'm asking these questions, what I'm trying to get to is the actual, in a way, the phenomenological explanation of what you experience. Now, what you said you feel the warmth of your body.
Mm.
Yeah, it's January 2nd today, the 3rd, whatever it is. It's kind of cold outside.
Yeah.
So sometimes, do you always feel warmth?
No, I'll sometimes feel like this morning I sat close to my terrace and there was a breeze coming in from the door. So I could feel it on the left-hand side of my body.
Great,
yeah.
Great. So you'll feel like the fluctuations in temperature.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's warm. So there's a range in there.
Yeah.
What other physical sensations, since we're talking about the body, what other physical sensations are you aware of when you expand out?
I'll come across how material feels on my skin, or if there's a bit of tension, like in my neck, or my knees hurting at the moment a bit. So occasionally I'll feel that.
Okay, great. And do you sit on the floor or do you sit in a chair?
I sit on the floor, cross-legged.
So when you have knee pain, for example, do you ever take a moment and just observe the knee pain?
Yes, I do.
And what do you observe when what kind of pain? And we're kind of creating a scenario. If you could just give me an example of what kinds of pain, the one that's currently bothering you.
Well, it's not an intense acute pain. It's like a subtle, and then what I might do is just slightly shift, perhaps an inch or two, to see if that could create more ease.
Okay. So there's a subtle, stabbing pain, piercing pain, twisting pain, dull pain. What kind of pain?
Dull pain.
Okay, good. Pleasant or unpleasant?
Unpleasant.
Okay. And would you say that there is, generally speaking, because everybody's different in meditation, but generally speaking, when this unpleasantness comes up, subtle, dull pain in the knee, is there aversion towards it, or are you able to have more acceptance towards it?
That's starting to change. Initially, I'd feel like this is an inconvenience because now I want to concentrate and I don't want to be distracted.
You want to meditate. You want to meditate, and damn me, yeah, sure.
My ego wants to check off the meditation,
Of course.
But now, it's there, so it's part of the present moment. So how do I just use it, or not just have it, without attaching to it in any way?
All right, so that's what I'm asking you. So what do you observe when the pain is there, and it's sometimes there's aversion, but you're actually you're also working to accept it, right? That's what we're doing. And when you're in that acceptance place, what do you notice about the pain?
It's less.
Oh, it hurts less.
It hurts less.
Okay, so the moment you kind of open up to acceptance of the pain, the intensity of the pain goes down.
Yes, and I think it's also because I then open up to the fact that it's not just about the pain. I'm a body experiencing the pain. So there's a greater whole. So it feels less significant within the greater whole.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah.
And can you tell me about that? Again, it can become more intense sometimes. It can become less intense. But I'm just curious about when it's lessening. Is there any kind of details that you're aware of in there? Of a tingling, a throb, the way you described your heart, for example. Any little things in there you can tell me that you notice?
probably like a tingling that goes from being, that size ball to it contracts, it becomes smaller.
Now, do you spend a few moments with the pain, like observing it, or is it just something that's in the periphery of your experience?
I spend some time on it, and then I try not to spend too much time there. So it's a bit of both.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, when you said this ball, is it a two-dimensional like circle, or is it in the mind's eye? Yeah. Or is it more of a three-dimensional?
Three-dimensional.
And it has a shape. Like, I mean, you said a ball, so it has some
Yeah.
type of ballish shape. Does it have any other details in what you're seeing in the mind's eye?
It's dark, and it's more like a dark cloud more than solid matter.
Great, great. So the solidity, and which is I'm so happy you explained it that way. So the solidity begins to break up into something that's a little more amorphous.
Yes.
And is there a center to that pain?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you have a ball, there's a center to the ball, right?
Oh, a center.
Yeah, center. Now, if you have a cloud, it's like, well, where exactly is the center in the cloud? It's not so clear to say. I'm just wondering if there is a center. And do you ever like pinpoint the center of the pain?
No, I haven't.
Good. Now, it's a tricky thing. So what I'm saying is I'm not asking you to dive into the pain, because that never works. By the way, this is just an example. We're going to move on in a second, but it is good sometimes to stay with pain, just because pain is rather on the gross side, and it can be intense. So it's easier for us if we have the capacity to cope, if it's not too intense, if we have the capacity to cope with the pain, we can actually stay with it a little bit longer. So it could be nice to stay with that, and not to penetrate, but to see if it doesn't come closer to the mind. And, like if you're ever eating with chopsticks, can you imagine trying to pick up like one grain of rice with a chopstick?
Mm.
It's tricky. I used to live in Japan. That was a trick.
Yeah.
They would check your chopstick skills to see if you could pick up one grain of rice, which I learned how to do. But it's the same thing with your mindfulness. Like if you have this pain, this kind of ball, and then see if you can. There's a point where the pain is actually starting, and that might move around. But just see again. Don't try to penetrate too much. But see if you can stay with it until that experience comes to you. And it can be. Pain is a wonderful experience for developing concentration, for really bringing the energetic effort and concentration together.
Mm.
Now it is a bit more of this kind of experience, because you're in a way, your microscope is going to a greater power.
Yeah.
Whereas you were speaking before about opening up, and you can do either one of those. They're both good. But since it's arising in the practice, it's a naturally arising phenomena. When we open up to something, we actually, in a way, bypass what's going on. We move into another space.
Yeah.
So just to be with the flow of experience of whatever's arising, which would be in this case, the pain. Okay? So that's just kind of a little, I wouldn't say it's a detour, but something that you can maybe bring into your practice.
Yeah.
And then you have your body, and after you stay with the body, and what I hear from you is there's a deepening of your more stability of attention, and a deepening of your meditative experience state. And then from there, at a certain point, you shift to what you were saying around here, right? The throat, that area.
Yeah.
When do you decide to make this, or when and how and why? I guess it's intuitive, but how do you make the decision to make that shift?
Twofold. So when my thoughts continually slow down, and I can physically feel myself relaxing, but deeply, to a point where I almost lose a sense of my body in space.
Yeah, I'm not frozen. I'm listening. I'm thinking.
Okay. So I get a feeling almost that I'm collapsing into myself, but it's into an openness. I mean, the image I have is it's almost cosmic. It's like I become a black hole. I've never seen a black hole.
I know, it's an awesome description. Okay, so that happens, and then you decide to shift.
And then and then it's like, okay, so this center, this part of my body has collapsed into itself. So then I'll go into the throat.
Okay, so there's always what you described, this kind of systematic thing. It's a method, and it sounds like it's working really well. It sounds like a good method, and it sounds like a good method for you. Something you practice for a while. But here's my question: we always have to find a balance between a method and then the intuitive naturally, the natural flow of the practice.
Yeah.
A method is structured. You know, even a meditation method is structured. The natural flow is unstructured. So here's what I'm asking, because what you described it sounds like quite like when you said the body's almost disappearing. What I heard, even though you didn't use the word, but that the boundaries somehow dissolve a bit,
Yeah.
and there's a cosmic awareness and expansiveness.
Yeah.
When that's happening, why do you shift to the head? I mean, I know it's the method.
Yeah.
I know it's what you usually do, but it sounds like you're already arrived someplace. That's not really the right way to say it, but I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Why do you ever just stay with that?
Well, I haven't, because I've been following this process. I guess that I've
Mm-hmm.
been influenced by Joe Dispenza. But then,
Yeah, and by the way, it sounds like a wonderful process. So
yeah, no, it's a good question. I guess when you repeat that 3 or 4 times, each time there's a deepening of the relaxation and a deepening and almost intensification of the feeling. So you finally arrive, so to speak, I guess, or you head down the right trajectory, I
mm-hmm.
guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel as if I've really relaxed my body and I'm entering the space where there's no attachment or identification to being somebody.
Okay, so that, are we still in the body, or that's after as you go through the systematic?
As I go through the.
Okay, so that all sounds good. So why don't you tell me what you do when you shift to the next level, to the next step in the process?
Well, I repeat the same sensation or idea of focusing on that particular space in my body. So the warmth, the tingling, any feelings, and then the immediate space around it.
When you say that place, you mean the throat?
The throat. The
And
throat
then
would be the second step. And then the back of the head, which for me aligns with the pineal gland, and then with the top chakra, the head, which then opens up into connection to source.
The pineal
As I'm
gland.
expressing this, I can definitely see that I've been influenced by the chakras, for instance.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's all cool. But here's what I'm thinking about. So the pineal gland, yeah, it exists. If we cut open the brain, it's in there, right? Usually, for most people. I hope for everybody.
Yeah.
But you'll never see something called a pineogram in your meditation. You won't see it. You won't see it. You'll feel the effects of what's happening in the pineal gland, because we all feel those effects, but you won't see it. Nor will you ever see something called a chakra in meditation. You will feel the effects of that. Like you'll feel the crown opening, all that stuff. Yeah. So that's fine. And having that map of the chakras that's actually a good map to have as well. So what I'm asking again is when you said the warmth and that's the phenomenological report of what's happening. So the opening of the crown chakra, I mean, okay, that's an idea. I'm not doubting you, but it's still an idea. So what does that mean? I mean, maybe I'm feeling an expansiveness or there's tingling here. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Well,
I remember my meditation teacher, one time I had an experience where I had this energy just flowing through me, and suddenly it was only on one side of my head. Like my left brain or right brain, I think it was this side. My left brain was suddenly like super energized and the right brain just turned off energetically. So I went and reported to my teacher, and he says, "What do you mean your brain?" I said, "My brain." He says, "Show me your brain." Show me your brain. You don't see the brain in meditation. So I was just using that. So what we wanted to hear, okay, no, I'm feeling this tremendous energetic flow from this side, but I'm feeling nothing from this side. So in a way, what we want to do is, because that's what we follow in our meditation practice, in our mindfulness-based meditation. We don't follow the ideas or the concepts, because the concept will actually limit it.
Yeah.
Whereas the flow of experience will not.
It's
and it already,
and
you're already in it's what it sounds like. You're already in a, like maybe fluctuating in and out, but it's kind of a non-conceptual state already. So most people at the beginning, when they meditate, no, there's this, there's that, they're meditating, but the mind, we have 2 senses of self. The first sense of self is in the body, as an embodiment practitioner. You understand? It's super embedded in the body. My identity is about how I am in my body and how I look, and the second sense of self is in the mind. So, and both of those are kind of, there's a conceptual overlay of our body that we all walk around with. Imagine, everybody has a sense of self that they carry in the world. And in some type of embodiment practice, we're actually trying to kind of loosen that up so we can be more natural body.
Mm.
And then sort of the idea of the self is kind of there as well, but it's not embedded. It's not kind of on top of us. It's not an armor. So in a meditation practice, at a certain point in the practice, the conceptual self drops away. And that's kind of what you're starting to describe here, that it's expansive, it's opening up. Yeah? So once the conceptual self drops away, you want to allow yourself to be in the flow of experience.
Mm.
Now, like in an interview here, if you want to use the pineal gland and all that stuff to describe what's going on, that's totally fine. But just want to remind you that in the practice is just the flow of experience that's happening.
Yeah.
Now, what do you mean that the crown chakra is opening? Phenomenologically, what are you experiencing?
Like a warmth and a tingling, and almost a merging or dissolving of my barrier, which is my scalp and my hair, to the space above my head.
Right. And what about the sense of self, the notion of I?
I becomes one, or we, collective, no longer me. Like I have infinite potential when I tap into that space. It's like I connect to something like a plug in the heaven, and there's a charge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean phenomenologically? What are you experiencing? Like moment by moment. Everything you said, I love it. I completely agree with the infinite potential and connecting with a higher source. I'm with you on that completely. But I'm just curious, phenomenologically, what's going on?
In terms of temperature, what I feel, sensation.
Let's move out of the body and into the mind. So, for example, there's when I talk about this kind of the conceptual self starts to drop away, people will often have the experience that there's thinking, because it just comes and goes, but thinking without the thinker, or observing without the observer. So the local sense of self starts to.
So lately, what I'd say in the past few weeks or so, is that my body lifts above myself and I watch myself meditating in the room that I'm in. And sometimes I lift higher. So I will see myself in my apartment, and then I will see myself in my suburb in London, and I rise. It's like I have another body that's rising, and then that body almost dissolves.
Which one?
The one that's risen above my physical body. It's like I leave myself.
Well, if you're having this kind of out of body experience, it's already dissolved. You can't take a boundary with you there.
Yeah.
So what? And I'm not downing here. You know what? Can you just hold that thought for 1 second? I've got to plug in my battery.
Sure.
I'm going to pause the video, plug it in. We're going to come back to that. I want to know this kind of out of body thing that you're talking about. So just let me pause it.
Great.
Okay, sorry about that. So now when you say this kind of, my words, not yours, this out of body experience, what is your sense of self then in that state?
Well, that's the whole thing I guess I'm trying to do, is lose my sense of self so that I can leave this time and space, this dimensional world that I experience.
Okay, so I understand that, but again, now I'm just kind of elaborating here again for the video, and this may not mean what you mean, but when you say that I try to lose my sense of self, it's actually can't be done. I is the sense of self. So there's a closed loop there. Now what will happen as you go deeper and deeper into states of meditation, and it only happens when the conditions are right. You can't make it happen. But the sense of self will lose itself. But it happens as a result of the process. And you can have an intention, let's say at the beginning of meditation, but then you got to let it go and just let the process go itself. So, but if you're having this experience that you're talking about already, my guess is that already the sense of self is already somehow in dissolving somewhat. The boundaries are more cosmic. What I'm curious about is what do you experience as you have that? So you look down at your body, you look down, you see all of London. What do you mean by that?
Well, I have a sense of elevation and a lightness. Like I lose, gravity doesn't affect me.
Right.
And my sense is that as opposed to the pain in my knee, I'm less dense and I become more cloudy as a sensation. And it's almost like I don't know what's happening. And that's the mystery about it. Like I'm going into the unknown.
That's awesome.
And I want to surrender to that because my whole life is spent controlling and knowing and doing.
Right. And you see London, what do you see?
I sense other people doing what I'm doing in that moment. So it's like this electrical charge. It's like I can pick
Okay.
up these
Oh,
beams. I'm like, oh, there's somebody meditating. There's somebody
okay.
meditating.
But that's not necessarily London.
No, I mean,
When
eventually
you,
it becomes
I mean,
global.
when I what I hear when you say I'm seeing, or what I imagine, so I could be wrong. It's just for me that you zoom up, you look down, you see, okay, there's the fish and chip shop over there, there's the bus stop over there, there's the phone booth, and you look down, you see what's going on, like a bird's eye, like a drone view.
Yeah.
You see that, or is it more of a kind of energetically, you just feel what's happening in a greater in your
It's
greater
that,
awareness?
but that's very short. I mean, I lift higher and higher very quickly. So I
Mhm.
go from the post office around the corner to, oh, I can see Europe and Africa because it feels like I'm on the moon very quickly.
Okay, so you're a bit you like looking down at a map or looking down at Google Earth or what? What do you mean?
Google Earth. Yes, like a Google. That's it. I'm tapping into Google Earth.
Meditation Google Earth. Well, I mean, I know this practice. In fact, I do this, and I do this sometimes with my students, the guided meditation. A similar thing. But and did you hear that?
Is that thunder?
That's thunder. Yeah,
That's delicious. I miss that from not living in South Africa.
yeah, yeah. Right. It only happens a couple of times a year here, but welcome when it does. Um, and I totally get the out of body experience. I'm not questioning that at all. Um, what I would suggest at this point, yeah, like
Yeah.
so. Here's the thing. So when you told me you sense that there's a person over there meditating. The person. What I heard from you is that there's an energetic feeling of, okay, there's something like that over there. There's an energetic feeling of, there's more like an experience of something like that, which is different than looking down at Google Earth, looking down at the map of Europe or
Yeah.
a picture.
It's more of the energy for
That,
sure and
that's
the,
what I'm
the map
good.
of the earth.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So that's what I was trying, because one is conceptual and one is experiential.
Okay.
And it's
Okay.
normal that, let's say you get this thing and you could, let's imagine you get an energetic, like there's more spiritual energy over here, or there's more, imagine somebody,
That's
let's say
what
there's a contracted energy over there. You might imagine, oh, it's that shopkeeper arguing again with somebody. So that would be the concept jumping in of the actual experience. And it's not neither one of them is a problem. You just want to be able to be mindful of what it is, what's going on. So if there's a certain energy coming up, and then suddenly a concept goes, oh, it's that person over there smoking a cigarette, whatever. Your neighbor is out on the balcony smoking a cigarette again. That would be the concept. And you want to be mindful of what's happening in both of those.
yeah.
Okay. And the other thing that I would suggest when this happens, this is my suggestion to you. It's all great what you're talking about. Your practice sounds good. Keep doing that. What I would suggest is when you start to have this out of body experience, instead of, again, there's a very subtle observer there.
Yeah.
I'm looking down at myself sitting and meditating. I'm looking down at the energetic space around the apartment. I'm looking down at the energetic space in the neighborhood, etc. What I would suggest at that point, now that's also a very good meditation, but I think what you can do at this point is turn the attention back to the observer.
Mm.
Because when you looked at when you're observing yourself through this process, and you went up into this area of the head, your boundaries started to disappear, right?
Yeah.
So the physical sense of self boundaries disappeared. You got an expansiveness,
Yeah.
and now there's a kind of a pure observer that's starting to become on a much more refined level. You should, and it might take some fine tuning, like a microscope. Like when you change the power of a microscope, it might take a little fine tuning. But see if you can't turn it back on the sense of self.
Okay.
And because the same thing will happen, that sense of self will dissolve
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Your experience will still be full on, even more full on. You'll be right. But I don't want to say anything else other than do that and see what happens.
Yeah. That's
Because eventually, everything we're doing, we're going from gross to subtle to causal to more and more and more and more refined senses of the self. And it's infinite. And as we go into that infinity, we actually connect with, as we go more into that infinite process, we connect with infinity. We connect with the universe,
yeah.
with the universal sense of self. It's
Yeah.
like if you take flour, and you sift flour,
Yeah.
it becomes more refined. And you put it in a more refined net, and you sift it again, it becomes like powder. You put it in a more refined, like those particles are always, they can be infinitely refined.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing with the sense of self. But you have to fine tune the way, like your process of what you described in the practice was you're going from less gross to more refined, to more subtle, to more refined, to more refined. Now see if you can't turn it back on the, let's say you have that out of body experience, you're looking down, turn it back, maybe enjoy that for a while, because it certainly is a deep state of practice, and something, that's a thread you can follow. Yeah, so I'm not suggesting don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But occasionally, see if you can just sit back, rest back, and turn the attention there
Inward.
and see what happens.
Yeah, I like that.
Dissolve the sense of self without trying to dissolve the sense of self.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll try not to try that.
That's beautiful. You know, in Buddhist practice, they have something called adhitthana, which is a determination. So the Buddha did that. Like the night that he was awakened, he said, I'm sitting down, I'm not going to move. Even if my bones break and my blood dries up, I'm not moving before I'm awakened. Now that's quite intense. And of course, the conditions were right for him to do that. But we have little adhitthanas. And that's when we try to not do something. So what you do is you sit down at the beginning, you make the intention, okay, may this practice, may a state of calmness arise, or may dissolution arise, or whatever, may out-of-body experience arise, whatever it could be.
Yeah.
And then you let it go, and you just do your practice.
Yeah.
Let the attention just kind of ride with the practice, but not holding on to it too strong.
Yeah. Thank you, Miles.
From there, there was another thing that you added to your practice, I think, that if you're following the method.
Well, then generally what I would do is I bring up an elevated emotion that's linked to gratitude or joy.
Okay.
And I will sometimes then, if there's something I particularly want to try and manifest, or if there's something I'm struggling with, or there's an outcome, I'll visualize it, and with that sense of gratitude, as if it's happened.
That's awesome. So yeah. Okay, so that's great, because that'll strengthen, and it'll strengthen it, and then you take that strengthened, elevated state, and you work on carrying it into your life for integration. Yeah. Do you ever work with? Sorry.
Yeah. No, and then I sometimes measure whether I'm coherent. So I've got heart math software, and I use the M-Wave Pro, and I can feel the difference. Like when I'm in a space of gratitude.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, my heart coherence is very different to when I'm not feeling.
Sure, of course. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, actually, you'll become more and more aware of that as you go along, and you won't even need the software is great because it's a biofeedback.
I'm finding now that I'm using it less and less because I want to trust myself.
Yeah. But it's good to have it as a reference, an external reference from the internal state, and then you'll start to then your identity will be more confirmed with that internal state, and then it just becomes natural. Do you ever work with issues or something that's coming up? Let's say there's some undigested emotional thing happened the other day and I'm still carrying it around. Do you ever shift when you're in that elevated state? Do you ever bring that up?
I do, probably not enough. So that's a gem to get from this conversation, actually. I think I've been so focused on manifesting because of, recently moving to London and a business, but that is, I've done that in the past. And those have been very, very good.
Well, so let's just look at three directions for you. Number one, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, it's great. And then from there, work on elevating states and manifesting and all that stuff. That's like positive.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get to the undigested emotional material.
Yeah.
So that from the elevated state, from the expanded state, just kind of very subtly bring that intention in. And see if you can hold because that's going to be like, you think about, I had that argument with my partner or whatever. It's a little bit unresolved. And if you can bring that elevated state to it, it'll help to digest it and then integrate it.
Yeah.
Now that's different than therapy. In therapy, you actually go into that state and you say, why am I, you really identify with it. So this is disidentified. With mindfulness, you reactivate it. Yeah. And then you let it self-liberate.
Yeah.
That's number two. Number three is what I described when let's say when you get to the state of out of body, you just turn back to the self.
Yeah.
And the moment you do that, you have to let go of everything. You have to let go of all agendas. You have to let go of methodology. Now, the reason I mention this is because I think you can do this from what you're describing. It shouldn't be so difficult for you. And when you do it, you'll find that the direction that the meditation goes will not follow the method.
Yeah.
In a greater sense, it will follow the method because it takes you into a deeper, more cosmic sense of self. But in another sense, it won't be the same system.
Yeah.
So use the system. It's like any type of method. We use it to anchor number one, to deepen and activate number two, and then it's going to take on its own life.
Surrender. Yeah.
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 And if you're ever having, let's say, a stressful day or tension, then do your method. The method is there to help us align with source. Yeah, that's why it's there. And then at that point, you let go and you trust the source. The source is going to take you exactly where it needs to go. It may take you to the pain in the knee. It may take you to a difficult emotional process. It may take you into an existential crisis. But if it's the source that's leading you there, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you ever have too much of an intense practice in the meditation, then always go back to the method that you have. It sounds like a wonderful place to not only ground, but it's a home base that you can come back and you can get just not only expansiveness, but even relief and repair.
Yeah.
All right.
That's perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Celynn, I'm very happy to hear about your practice. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks. I feel like I'm just a novice at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It's always good that we're all novices in that sense.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Thank you for this. This has been a really useful conversation.
Yeah, good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm going to turn off the recording. If you could stick around, then we'll chat for just a couple of seconds before we finish off. Before I do you have any final questions or anything? Or
no, but I know questions will arise. So I think the best thing is just to practice for now.
That's great. And you can always contact me if you, I'm quite busy, as I'm sure you are too. But if you do have a question, you can reach out and I'll do my best to get to you. Okay. Thank you very much. And I wish you all the best for a wonderful meditation for the coming
year. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Will I be notified if and when you use this recording? Because I'd love to promote it and share it with.
Yeah, what I'll do is the recording's still on, so I'll go ahead and say this. I'll put this on my YouTube channel probably today even. Maybe sorry, maybe tomorrow. And in terms of the posting it on, so it'll be there and it'll be open. You can it's Integral Dojo TV. You'll be able to find it. But I'll probably post it on my blog. I might wait a few weeks before I post it on my blog because I have some posts lined up. But it'll definitely go live then. But from YouTube, you can share it as well. So that's fine.
All right, great.
Okay.
It's very useful. Yeah. And is the idea? Are you looking for clients to coach?
Well, I mean, yes and no. Yes and no. This is the purpose of doing this was really to kind of just introduce people to my work for the courses that I'm going to be releasing, because I have a course coming up in about 3 weeks time. And in terms of one-on-one clients, I take only a few, and right now I'm not so I don't have the time.
All right.
But if people are interested, then they can always reach out to me, and
the online courses are available.
They will be available. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the section. Okay.
Gotcha. Great.
Great. Okay, so stick around. I'm going to turn off the recording. Thank you so much, and good luck with your practice.
Thank you.